Hello, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for taking time to talk with me. Really enjoyed the film.
Oh, thank you, man. Of course.
Yeah. So I would say it's pretty fair to say that your rise to success has been pretty meteoric. Your first role was only a few years ago, and now you're already working with people like Viggo Mortensen. Do you find this exciting, intimidating?
Mate, I'm like, I don't know what to think. I'm like as like shocked by it as everyone else, to be honest. Um, yeah, it's fantastic. I feel like just incredibly privileged to be where I am. And this has been acting has been something I wanted to do since I was a kid. So working with people like Vigo and Vicky and Danny and Gary and the whole cast of this film is just phenomenal. It's yeah, a dream really.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was it about this film, obviously, other than the cast that you would be working with, that drew you to this project?
Yeah, I mean the script itself was I thought was beautiful when I read it. It was Vigo sent it over and I read it in one sitting. And he said, "Oh yeah, there's a character I think you'd be good for if you want to take a look at this guy Weston." I was like, "Okay," and again, I was shocked at the scale of the character and how much of an important role it was in the film. I didn't expect him to, trust me with something like that at all, really. And yeah, I mean, him as a character as well. What a fun part to play. Get to let loose and become a fully fledged psychopath cowboy. It's like
Right.
it's cool,
Well,
man.
well, you mentioned how, the character you play is I would say it's very antagonistic, maybe even almost evil. Did you find it
Yeah,
difficult to play such a dark role?
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, I had to like find elements of him that I could, I don't know, empathize with in order to play him like truthfully. I didn't want him to be a surface level kind of evil guy with no depth.
Right.
He's a human. I wanted to kind of do him justice in that way. Not that he deserves it, but like
Right.
there was some scenes, in particular the scene with Weston and Alfred, his dad. There's a confrontation, and it's the only scene for me that I saw him falter. In terms of his stature and his strength and his power and brutality. That was the scene where you kind of saw a bit of vulnerability in Weston, and that was immediately the thing I was like, cool, in the script, and that I latched onto to kind of generate this backstory as to why he might have been the way he was, the relationship with his dad, and his mother wasn't in the picture. Maybe that was the reason why he's so obsessed with Vivienne. It's like all these things started to kind of spring to mind, and it was through that vulnerable moment in his character that just kind of made him I feel more whole.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think something that, as the film as a whole, something that when I interviewed Viggo Mortensen, I was talking about was kind of how he takes these tropes that we're familiar with of
mm,
the Western and kind of flips them on their head and kind of subverts expectations. How do you
yeah.
think your character does that with the trope of the villain in the Western genre?
Well, that's a good question, and it's I'm going to try my best. Um, yeah, well, the thing is like for me, in terms of the subversion and stuff in this film, when it comes to the genre, I think it is really Vivienne and Olsen as characters are the things that are the main things that subvert it. Their relationship feels very modern. Their characters feel quite like the way they talk to each other feels modern as well. They're that kind of jokiness that they have. Um, and Western for me was one of the tropes that kind of set the film in a classic place in terms of the genre. So I don't know how much subversion there was when it came to the villain, in Weston's character.
Right.
Maybe it was just giving him more human side sometimes. It's not really seen very often, but he is kind of through and through just a horrible guy. So it's like
Yeah.
I think the subversion comes from Vivienne for sure. She's kind of the main. She kind of trumps all of these. The power of the men in this film is something that's trumped by Vivienne in her silence and her resilience and her strength, and that's something that you don't really see in many other westerns. So that's
Yeah,
what.
I think that's a great answer. And I think something else that this film does, the Western genre is something that is generally speaking associated with America, and I think that that's kind of a huge lie. Like
Mm,
obviously there you go back to like spaghetti westerns were filmed in Italy, and then you
yeah,
have this film in particular shows the true diversity of the American West.
yeah,
As somebody who is not from America, what resonates with you about the Western genre?
Yeah, I mean, it was that I definitely felt more kind of in tune, as me, as Sully, like personally, with probably with how Olsen would feel or how Vivienne would feel as like immigrants living in the West. It's like it's not something I've grown up with. Like I grew up in the UK. It's not something like that. That history of my country is completely different.
Right.
It's just as violent and horrible, and like we were all awful people back then. Do you know what I mean? It's like everyone was, but yeah, I had kind of an outside perspective on it for sure. But then I was trying to watch as many westerns as I could. Vigo was sending me westerns to watch, like 50, 60 westerns, range from the 50s to the 2000s or whatever. And it was, yeah, so I tried to indulge as much as I could to, portray this
Yeah, and
real.
what were some of the ones that you kind of discovered through the help of Vigo?
With the help of Vigo. Yeah, I mean, he sent me, so one of his favorites that he said was Red River.
Okay.
So John Wayne, and that's where I kind of like looked at John Wayne in that film, and he's pretty like scary in that. And there were parts of him I was like, cool, well, I'm going to kind of take that and use a bit of that in it. So there was definitely inspiration there. Bad Company was another one that was, I think it was one of Jeff Bridges' first roles, like 1973. And it followed a group of young people, and that again gave me insight into what life might have been like for Weston as he was growing up, in the town, like lawlessness and stuff like that. So yeah, it definitely helped kind of delving into the genre in that way.
Yeah. So something I have noticed about your filmography is that a lot of your roles so far have been period pieces. Is this a
Yeah.
coincidence, a conscious choice? Is it something that you're starting to be typecast as somebody who was born 150 years too late?
Yeah, man, I'm trying to like get out of it, bro. I'm like, oh, do I have to wear another? I've got to wear breeches again, really? No. Um, no, I think it's just something that's happened. I don't know what it is. It's the way I look, or like my face, or my persona that screams periods pieces. But I don't know. No, it's not even. It's not a choice for sure. It's definitely coincidental. And I am. There's a couple of films that I've done recently that are a bit more modern.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see how they're received as well. Because, like you said, I think most of the things that's out of mine are period.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
don't even know. We'll see how they go. Maybe I'll just stick to period after this if they do terribly, but hopefully not. Yeah, I want to
And
like
then
have the full range.
Yeah, and then I only have one more question. So I will say, obviously, Viggo Mortensen, in addition to being a very talented director, is an accomplished actor in his own right. As an actor working with a director who is also an actor, did you find that created a unique dynamic on set? Did you find that it helped make you more comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I think Viggo did a great job of making me feel comfortable on set and feeling like I belong there. It's like as same with the other cast, Vicky and Danny and Garrett as well. They were like just everyone. It would have been easy for me to come into something like this as a young actor, feeling like incredibly tense. I don't know if I belong here and that kind of stuff. But they really made me feel like I was supposed to be there, which was a massive help. And yeah, it was great. And in terms of direction from Vigo, him being an actor obviously influenced the way he directed for sure. And I think he kind of gave me enough space when I needed it to kind of figure stuff out. And then there was sometimes it was just a very specific little note for like one part of a line, and I was like, yeah, cool, I can do that. And then he was like, that's all I want from you, and then you play with the rest. And I was like, cool. So it was kind of hands on sometimes, but he was ultimately kind of let me play around with the role, which was really good. It was great fun.
Absolutely. Well, I think you did a fantastic job, and I can't wait to see what you did next. Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
man.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.